Oh my god, that was fucking sick looking. Oh my god. Give me that. Dude, everything, there's just noises happening.
I need more time for that.
Everything is just dead, but I can't see anything. This build is fucking crazy. Oh my god.
Can you feel it? You gotta keep.
Is to go even further beyond.
Drop that bitch.
Wow, that boss just got one tapped. Yo guys, what is up? Max on our Path of Exile 2 video, and today we've got another update to our Final Form Werewolf Druid or Oracle build. Now, the last update that we put out focused on some screen clear tech that you're able to do, just clear everything in front of you, and we're still doing all of that. However, there was a change in a recent hotfix or patch, I don't know when this happened, that allows us to do some tech that I had actually tried to do in the start of the league that didn't work, and now we can do it, and it actually makes the build more efficient without really spending any currency. You can eke out another 20% more damage on the build, which is crazy because it already does a bunch of damage, and we get more quality of life and a bunch of other things. So we're going to be explaining everything you need to know. Hope you guys enjoy the breakdown. Let's do this. So the most important thing to talk about and the biggest change to the build has to do with our skill tree, which is going to look very, very complicated. I don't expect you to try to copy this from this video. I will have a max roll planner with the full skill tree. But one thing that I tried to do when we first started leveling up this wolf was putting Lunar Blessing on a weapon set 2 rather than a weapon set 1, and speccing all AoE nodes. And so Lunar Blessing, in theory, would be coming down with these massive AoE explosions to really help with our clear, and I thought that's what we were going to need to do. However, when I tested that, Lunar Blessing wasn't triggering any of its moonbeams on my attacks from Lunar Assault or Shred, and that's because Lunar Blessing was in weapon set 2, and Shred and Lunar Assault were in weapon set 1. And so it stopped me being able to create moonbeams, and we lost like half of our clear. And so that's why in the more recent skill trees, we've basically been avoiding using these weapon set passives that you can pick up because there was no point in using them. However, in the most recent hotfix or change, they've made it so that you actually can trigger Lunar Blessing moonbeams while it is on a different weapon set than your Lunar Assault and Shred. And they also updated Lunar Blessing to have the Warcry tag that did not have this at launch. And there's a lot of very, very interesting Warcry nodes that we can specifically apply to not only Lunar Blessing, but also to Arctic Howl to just give us way more AoE, way more clear, way more damage, while also like fine-tuning and min-maxing for our Lunar Assault and our Shred. Just to give you an example, we were specced into Tribal Fury. Tribal Fury reads that your strikes deal splash damage. Speccing this node for Lunar Blessing and Arctic Howl and everything else made no sense because these are not strikes. They don't count as melee hits, so it's kind of wasted points. However, we just needed this for like our Shred and our Lunar Assault. Now that we can do weapon sets, we can make our strikes deal splash on specifically Shred and specifically Lunar Assault and Cross Slash, while also going over to Warcry nodes for our Lunar Blessing and our Arctic Howl. So just to give you a reference, we can pick up Deafening Cries, which gives us Warcry cooldown. Our Lunar Blessing right now is on a 14-second cooldown at base, which doesn't even take into account the 40% additional cooldown that we get just from critting things. We can pick up Guttural Roar for way more Warcry speed and increased AoE, and we debilitate enemies with our Warcries, which means the enemies are going to be moving 20% slower, and we take 10% reduced damage. So that is very nice. Just to give you an idea of how fast our Warcries are, that's our Lunar Blessing, and that's our Arctic Howl. They're very, very quick. Our Warcry speed allows those to basically trigger instantly, which is super nice because I was actually experiencing some deaths when I was in a big pack and I needed to howl. I'm looking up at the moon for 3 seconds and I gotta wait to freeze things. That also allows us to pick up Howling Beast. Howling Beast means that our Warcries inflict critical weakness. Critical weakness is crazy for this build because it's plus 0.5 per crit weakness, and we can stack up this very, very quickly with Echoing Cry on Arctic Howl, meaning that our Arctic Howl will echo 3 times for 3 stacks, and we're using Second Wind on this, so we can pop it and just have this going off on enemies, especially for bosses, while we're stacking up crit weakness. This 0.5% crit, that might not sound very impressive, but this is a very different crit than percent crit chance. It's basically a increase to our crit chance on our weapon. So if my weapon is a base 11 and we put 1 crit weakness, it goes to 11.5, and then it goes to 12. You get the point, but it's increasing our base, so all of our other critic things are going way higher. This puts us to over 40. I haven't done the exact math, but easily over 40% on bosses, which is really, really nice. That's actually where we're aiming to be. And then we can also pick up some additional quality of life with the Extinguishing Exhalation, which we remove ignites on ourselves. So if we're ever taking a degen from fire, we just click our Warcries, which are always up. It goes away. And then we can go Cremating Circles, which gives our empowered attacks 15% of our physical damage as extra fire. Arctic Howl was also recently buffed so that our empowered attacks do tons of cold. So now we're getting bunches of extra cold and more damage. So you can kind of see how just a few changes without spending any currency, we can optimize our skill tree and just deal way more damage. The other change, and this did cost 1 divine to do, is we picked up a Time Lost Sapphire. Now, there's a lot of crazy different unique jewels that you could spend a lot of money on for this build. However, for very little investment, this is a huge pickup. I was using mana on kill in a bunch of different jewel sockets for being able to use mana, but also for survivability. Picking up one of these gives us mana on kill on any of our notables, which, so for example, this In Your Face now gives me 1% of my mana on kill. So a lot of extra quality of life and survivability from that. But if we pick this up with a prefix of upgrade to large and a suffix of increased effective notable passives, it will actually give us a 1.24 multiplier to anything in this area. So, for example, if you were struggling with range damage and projectiles, we now, with this defend with 148% of our armor against projectile attacks. So we just have more survivability from this node. We're dealing almost 50% increased damage to melee close enemies. Mine's a 24, not a 25. This would be 50%. And we can also pick up a bunch of our armor additionally applies to elemental damage, while also getting all of our little nodes to give us increased damage while shapeshifted. You could spend a lot more and get a crit damage on all your notables, or attack speed on all of your small passives. There's definitely ways to juice this up if you want to spend, but for a relatively low investment, at least for when I was looking at them, this is a really, really nice pickup. And then that allowed me, because I had mana and kill on all my other jewels, because all those notables are giving me a mana on kill, I could just pick up some sapphires like this for crit damage, area of effect, damage penetrates, cold res, and extra skill speed. And then the other one I grabbed was recover life on kill, crit damage, area of effect, and cold pen. So we can get more damage on our jewels for less, and then we just spend this so we can get all our mana sorted out on the build. So with our changes to our skill tree, our supports also changed slightly. Most of them are staying the same. However, in Pounce, because we can move some things around, we've now got Blazing Critical on Pounce. This means that whenever we jump in with Pounce, we are going to be getting a 15% of bonus fire damage buff, and we're using pounds to engage. We're still rocking Mark of Siphoning, Freezing Mark, Cold Exposure, and then the last support is we're putting in Shocking Leap. This reads that whenever we jump on an enemy and crit them, which we have a 100% crit chance on this build, we are going to be proccing Shocked Ground on them, which gives us another wide area of shock to enemies. This build does apply shock without this. People were asking about that. If you check any of the boss footage, you'll see that they are procced with shock just off of Electrified Claw. The amount of damage that we're doing, we can still proc shocks on enemies, but that'll give us more consistent and a way to engage and apply shocks in a large radius, which is really, really nice. And then in Arctic Howl, we're leveling this up with Tireless for more empowered attacks. Raging Cry. One of the big nodes that I didn't mention is we're picking up Roaring Cries, which our war cries have a minimum of 10 power. Arctic Howl gives us 4 rage per 5 power on enemies. So if we don't have any enemies in our vicinity, or we're like getting ready for the boss to spawn, we could just Arctic Howl, and that will give us a bunch of rage, and it's giving us rage on all of those pulses. So like you just saw my rage was 0. I click this, and look how fast my rage is filling up. You could basically start a boss fight with 0 rage, and as soon as the boss is in and spawning, you're at full rage. So that is really, really nice tech. We're pairing that with Echoing Cry, which lowers the initial AoE, but gives it 100% more AoE. This also is going to help us build more rage and buff up our war cry even more, have more enemies affected by it. We've got Second Wind, so that when it's on cooldown, we're getting life regen, and then Brittle Armor for when we do freeze enemies with this. We're going to be allowing us to break their armor with our cold damage. And then in Cross Slash, I just changed the like Blazing Crit to Heft, so that our Cross Slash is doing more damage. If we swatch to this, now it's like 84,000 DPS. Obviously, you're only cross slashing like once every few minutes, unless like there's a lot of elites that you really need to kill, but cross slash gonna be hitting real hard. By the way, with the weapon set tech, just to kind of go over it, so you're gonna want shred on your weapon set. Like, I mean, your shred will always be technically on like weapon set 1. You can't assign it. So shred on our weapon set 1, Lunar Assault on 1, Lunar Blessing on 2, Pounce on 1, Savage Fury on 2. Herald Device you want to make sure is on both, so it's proccing explosions off of your Lunar Blessings. Arctic Howl on 2, Cross Slash on 1, and then Eternal Rage on 1. Note that Eternal Rage with Savage Fury being in like an offhand, you're gonna have to sacrifice one of these things. I think you sacrifice Eternal Rage just because our Warcry speed is so quick that like if we're on this weapon set, we're not there for long, and we also have the Howl tech to basically give us the Rage for free. So basically no issue losing that. It's going to be constantly regenerating on the main form that we're in, and in the second form we have the rage generation. The next thing I want to talk about is gear upgrades. Now there's a lot of you that are working up to getting the gear that I have, but there also are a fair bit of people that have been like, hey yo, I got this super lucky drop, I've got this much currency, where should I like really invest in the build, what can I do to like really juice it up? And so there's a few things that you can do. The first thing is if you do want to get a better talisman, I'm using a self-crafted talisman. I made a crafting guide for these. You can make them for like 6 to 8 divines. To buy them, they're like 10 to 12. And this talisman is what you saw in all the footage. Don't need to get any better. This will genuinely last you. But for example, let's say you do craft a better talisman, or you do buy one that's like, you know, super high DPS, like something like this, plus 6 levels, onslaught, extra cold, fizz, 900 DPS. Mine's like a 600 DPS, so it's like 30% more damage. But let's say you do end up with something like this, but you still want to do the explosive tech to blow up screens of enemies with your Herald device. You can use an Natal's Embrace. This is 24 divines. So once again, like a really big, expensive upgrade. But this will allow you to get part of your fizz damage, which we do have bonus fizz damage on the tree, as extra chaos damage. And then you break armor equal to 20% of that chaos damage dealt. This will help supplement the loss of fizz damage on your weapon. And we also do have the 10% bonus extra fizz. And so that together should be enough to still do the armor explosion tech. Much more expensive to do than the way we currently have it set up, but you could upgrade your DPS and still get the explosions if you wanted to go that route. Next thing I get asked a lot about is, I really want to start adding a bunch of rarity to the build. What should I do if I want to run rarity? What should we sacrifice? And the big pressure on rarity is a suffix, and it is also a prefix, meaning that most likely you're going to be, to add a lot of rarity, you're going to lose some survivability, and you're also going to lose some resistances, as that's usually what your prefix is, your survivability, your suffix is your resistances. And so one thing that you can do, my chest piece is like 1 divine, so if you're looking for an upgrade, you can buy a Grand Regalia. Now, depending on how much you want to spend on these, you could look for different things. But one of the best things that you could do with this is you could sort out your resistances and your spirit. I'm actually going to look for a per socket of chaos resistance. So something like this. This is 15 divines right now. This one's like a pretty juicy roll, but this is 12% chaos resistances per socket filled, 12% to all resistances per socket filled, and then 12 to spirit per socket filled. And then you can put in reses here, you can put in chaos res, whatever, and this will sort out a lot of your spirit, it'll sort out a lot of your resistances, and it'll sort out a lot of your chaos resistances. And so what this does is it opens up a lot of prefixes and suffix slots on your other pieces of gear for rarity. If you want to do that, you could also look for, they get very expensive depending on how many sockets you're looking for. If you are looking for a 5 socket, it can get up to like 60 to 90 div if you want to get crazy with the amount of sockets on it. But if you wanted to get like a 5 socket with chaos res, all res, and spirit with 5 sockets, this is going to basically free up a lot of your slots on your helmet, on your rings, to get really, really big amounts of rarity if you want to start getting crazy with that and like farming. The number one thing that I really want to try on the build that I just don't have the currency for, I don't think I ever will, is a Temporalis robe. Now, this would just strictly be for like giga shenanigans, but the Temporalis is a robe that you can get for doing a hitless run in the Trial of Sekimas, and it comes with the very unique line that your skills have minus to like 1 second of cooldown. It can roll like 1.5, 1.6. We would only need 1 second of cooldown, and the reason for this is, from what I'm hearing, is Temporalis reduces your cooldown on your Lunar Blessing Moonbeams down to 0 seconds. So right now, every time you melee attack, you get 6 to 7 Moonbeams coming down, and then there's a interval that you have to wait before you can get Moonbeams. So every 0.77 seconds, you're getting 7 Moonbeams, right? However, with a Temporalis on, there would be no cooldown to your Moonbeams, meaning every single hit of Shred getting cast at 200% of our attack speed, every single hit would come 7 meteors down, 7 Moonbeams from the sky. And I haven't seen gameplay of it, but in theory, this should allow you to just blanket the entire screen in Moonbeams. Like, you just wouldn't see anything because they would just be coming down like crazy. It'd be a huge upgrade for bossing. It'd probably be insane looking for mapping. Would be insanely expensive to do, but I think it would be really, really cool. So just like a really, really big chase item for the build, potentially Temporalis. At that point, you'd probably have so much damage, you wouldn't need to worry as much about survivability, but that would be a really cool item for our setup. The next thing that is like a really awesome chase item for the build is Olroth's Resolve. Now, this reads that you recover a ton of life over 30 seconds. So, like, for example, this one here for 25 div is you're getting 1,100 life over 3 seconds, and it's instant, but any of your excess life recovery is added as guard for 20 seconds. This means that we get this amount of life as a extra health pool that needs to be depleted fully before an enemy can hurt our energy shield. And then they have to go, once they get through our energy shield, they have to go through our mana. And then once they go through our mana, they have to get to our life. So this adds another pool of survivability, but it'll also protect your energy shield. So your energy shield will constantly recover. and it just gives the build a whole lot more survivability. Now, in order to do that, we do need to have something that costs life, which, by the way, our Lunar Blessing, because we have Adelui's Bloodletting, does cost life. So you could click this, and then whenever you Lunar Blessing, just instantly hit a flask, and all of a sudden, you're just going to constantly have a whole nother, basically, life bar, which is crazy. So that is, if you're, got some extra divines, you want to invest into your survivability, that is another kind of like chase item. Guys, that is going to do it for the build guide. I hope you enjoyed. Overall, adding weapon sets into your Arctic Howl and Lunar Blessing provide the build with a ton more survivability, extra quality of life, and more damage. Huge upgrade without having to spend any divines. And then we also mentioned some things that if you do want to spend some like serious divines, there are some really crazy chase uniques and things that you could do for the build. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. I will catch y'all in the next one. Take care. Peace.